All right, great. So I think where we left off last, we were chatting about, we had some time to talk about, we had some time to talk about materials and landscapes and weather. We'd spent some time over in photo and saving our work. Now it's time for us to have some fun with content library. And essentially, content library is all about your entourage. So let's uh let's have a look around. So the first thing you're going to notice is you're going to have a bunch of options when you click over to content library. You've got nature entourage, you've got people and animals, cars, random objects, tables, chairs, that kind of stuff, effects, um, lighting, groups, that kind of thing. So for right now, let's start small here. We're going to try by clicking over into nature because I know softscaping your work is going to be a huge element of making it livable. So let's say here I have just double clicked into the nature pane. You're going to notice something. You're going to have a whole bunch of different options come up, lots of different stuff, pages of different options for things you can bring in. But it's not necessarily precluded to just broadleafs and deciduous stuff. You're going to have options for coniferous trees, palm trees for some reason, leafless trees, if you want to show something kind of skeletal in the winter, flowers, cacti. There's really quite a lot of options here. Shrubs, clusters of leaves. Um, there's really lots and lots of things you can do here. So let's chat a little bit about some coniferous trees here. Let's say that we want to bring something. So I'm in my nature tab of the content library. I'm looking through my list here and I see one that say I like. Maybe I like this one, this little Fraser fir here. Or no, let's pick a better one. Okay, let's go with a juniper. That's a better one. I'm going to left click and watch this. Now we've specified what we want to bring in. And it's going to ask us to put it somewhere, pick a spot somewhere in our layout. So you're going to notice that even with our cursor indicating we can drop this thing wherever we want, I'm still able to use my navigation and right click and hold to essentially turn my screen as I want to. I can still move left and right, and I can still navigate just fine. It just so happens that wherever I left click is going to produce this tree. So, got my cursor here. I'm going to pick a spot. Let's say, yeah, I want something over on the corner of the house. I will tap left click, but look, it's just like copy and paste in AutoCAD. It's going to let me keep left clicking until I tell it to stop. So if I want to click 1, 2, 3, as many trees as I want, it will let me keep clicking and placing until the cows come home. So if I want to get out of that command because I'm done placing, I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. Great. So you're going to notice now, look at this. You've now got this bunch of different options that have just appeared next to your content tab. Now these different options, select, rotate, scale, these essentially will let you manipulate the thing that you have placed, whether it's a tree or a person or an object or whatever. So we've got our tree placed. Now we're going to tap select because we want to pick one of these trees. So here's what's going to happen. I've moved from place to select. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cursor over and look at this. You see all these little gray circles popping up? This isn't like SketchUp where you can kind of just click and pick. What you're going to do is before you can click and drag anything anywhere, you have to specify which one you actually want to click and drag. And this is how you do it. So when you're set to place, or really any of these options, it's going to ask you to actually specify which one you want to move or edit. So I'm going to move my cursor up to here, and just like that, see there? That just lit it up. So I just dragged my cursor over top of it, and that lit that tree up. So that's saying, do you want to move this one? And I'm going to left click it to indicate, yes, I do. Now, once you're in the select command, you're going to have all kinds of options to either move it to the left or the right, or essentially adjust it as you want to. Now you're going to notice, once I've picked select, see down here, that just opened up a bunch of sub options for select. Right now I've got it set to move free, which means I can do pretty much what I just did there a second ago. That means I can left click it and drag it and kind of move it freely across this flat ground plane. But let's say I want one of those floating trees or something like that. What I'm going to do is then I'm going to move my cursor over here, and now I'm going to have the option to left click this and move vertical. Now you're going to notice, again, I can easily shift to any of my other trees, but this is the one we're focusing on, and just by dragging my cursor over the kind of gray button, which is now blue to indicate this one is active, and this is the one we're working on, that's how I can edit it. So you're going to notice by clicking that blue active sort of button with the move vertical command engaged, I can tap left click and hold and drag upwards or downwards to move it up and down. And just so you guys know, this applies to any object that I put in from the content library in Lumion. So whether I'm doing this with a car or a chair or a person, all of these move and manipulate commands are applicable everywhere. So that's all good. If I want to move it horizontal, because I want to like strafe it to the left or right, all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cursor down here and I'm going to pick move horizontal. And you're going to notice that once again, that 4 directions along the ground plane pop up, and by left clicking and holding where that blue sort of button is to indicate it's active, I can drag this around as much as I want. So that's all great. Now, this is good, but maybe I want to change the orientation of that tree, or I want to make it kind of look unique from the others. By picking rotate, I can easily do this. So I'll pick rotate. You're going to notice again, this blue guy is active, so that's great. I'm going to left click and hold him, left click and hold, and then drag all the way around. And you're going to notice I can rotate that tree as much as I want. If I want to rotate this tree over here, I'm not stuck on this one. I can just move my cursor over here. See the green indicator? That's sort of to indicate, that's Lumion asking us, do you want to pick this one? So I'm going to say, yes, I do. I will pick left click. And I'm going to click and hold, and I can rotate this all the way around as I need. So that's all good. If we can rotate, we can move, but because showing maybe the size of something or adjusting your entourage or showing a tree that's at 2/3 of its fully grown size or its fully grown size is a big deal, here's where we're going to get to a really, really handy one, and that is your scale option. We're going to pick scale and watch what it will let us do. Assuming with scale selected, we want to maybe make this one a little bit bigger. What we're going to do is, just like with any of the other ones, we're going to move our cursor over. We're going to pick left click, and you're going to notice by dragging upwards, it scales it up. By dragging downwards, what does it do? It scales it down. And you're going to notice here, have a look here at the size. We can see it, we can size it all the way down to really whatever percentage of it that we want to. Just keep an eye on this number here and the scale bar to see just how big or how small we've made it. So, bless you. We're going to left click and hold once again. And do you see the scale bar up there? It's getting a little bit bigger, just like that, or a little bit smaller. The idea there is we can essentially adjust this to be like a third or a half or however big or small we want. And again, if I want to move this tree as well, I've still got the scale command engaged. I'm just going to move my cursor over. I will click this indicator to make sure this one is active. Once it's blue to indicate that it's active, we will left click and drag up or down and adjust it as we need to. So that's a little bit about adjusting your size. Now you will notice something here too. Let's have some fun putting some people in here. I'm going to say we're happy with our trees. Cool, we brought a couple in. Now we're going to bring in some people or some animals or something like that. So we're going to move our cursor over here on the content tab, double click people and animals, and check this out. Now we've got tons of different options we've got men, women, we've got different pages of them. You want, to bring children in, dogs and cats, birds, seagulls, swans. Bring a horse in if you want. You can fish depending on what you're trying to show. Just for example's sake, let's pick a person who's hanging out with their dog. So I will left click and pick her. Now look at this. See what just happened there? because there's this number 3 here and sort of like this sequential folder, that basically indicates that within this model type that we can pick here, there's 3 different options that some nice person at Lumion made for us. So we're going to click into this one. Then we're going to see, okay, so there's a few different options here. We've got an option of this person sitting, you know, talking on the phone or walking with a dog. We're going to pick walking with a dog here. So we will left click. We're going to move our cursor over. And we're going to see, now we can place her somewhere. So we're going to left click. And just like that, okay, great. She's left clicked, she's into the model. We're going to go ahead and hit escape. And great. So now that we're active and into this, we're going to see we've successfully placed it already. If we want to select her, we can pick the select option. And essentially we can move down to here and we can pick our move options to see, do we want to maybe move her around a little bit? Do we want to, here, you know what, let's, we're going to move her closer to the back here. We're going to drag her. So all I did there was with the move free option selected under the select command. I'm just going to drag her up to the top of the deck here. Great, just like that. Now let's say I want to rotate her. Just like with the tree, I'm going to pick the rotate option, left click to let me know this is the thing I'm interested in rotating. Rotate it with left click held. So they're making their way towards the stairs. Great. I don't want to mess with the scale, but if I did want to make her, you know, scale her differently, I certainly could. So that gives you a bit of an idea. You can see I picked a different category of entourage, I guess you could say, but I'm still, I'm still able to essentially adjust it and size it and move it around with the same couple of simple tools. So that gives you a bit of a sense of how you can adjust your different pieces of entourage. Now, let's have a little bit of fun with maybe some objects. And again, this is where diving in here, having some fun, seeing what your different options are that you can pull in is a really big part. And, you know, depending on what you trick out your project space for assignment 3, you're going to be able to, I guess, adjust what you're looking for accordingly. So maybe I want to do something a little bit different. So I'm in my objects command. I'm looking through here. I got options for chairs, sofas. You know, if I want to move over to tables, I've got lots of different options for that. Kitchen stuff, plumbing, bathrooms, food and drink. You know, if you're creating a cafe, I think when they made us do this project, it was like a coffee shop. So if they're making you do something like that, you know, bringing in these cool pieces of entourage to really bring it to the next level is super doable at this stage. Let's say I want like a fireplace. Cool. So I'm going to go over here and you're going to notice that in any category that you go through, this little magnifying glass, that is the search button. So if I want like a conifer or a Carl Forster grass or something like that, you just pop up to your search engine. I can punch that in, Carl Forster. I don't remember how to spell that. Okay, but you get the idea. Essentially, Lumion's got a pretty big library, so you can kind of look and trick out your stuff as you need to. So for now, we're going to go back to objects. Let's find that fireplace. So I'm going to go search. I'm going to type in fireplace. Okay, great. So Japanese fireplace. All right, that one looks cool. Or maybe I'll try this one. That kind of jives with the deck. So I'm going to left click and pick this one. And just like before, I'm going to drag my cursor in. And I'm going to left click and specify a point where I want that fireplace to go. I will tap left click. I don't need 2 fireplaces. I just want one. So I'm going to hit escape to indicate that I'm done. So great. So we've got that piece of object in, but you know, we want to really bring this to the next level. So what can we do? We can look down a little bit and see what effects has to show for us. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click effects. Now check this out. In effects, you have all kinds of stuff here. You have, you know, fountains, you got smoke, fog, you know, leaves blowing, that kind of stuff. You're going to be able to, I mean, there are options to put things like sound in because Lumion has a video option that we won't really get into in this class, but does exist. For now, let's pick fire. We're going to put some fire in that fireplace just to really elevate some realism. So left click, and just like before, you're going to pick an option and we're gonna see what kind of how it looks. So we'll try this one. Okay, that's way too much. That's the fire department being called. So yeah, just enough. Okay, that's obviously a little bit too much. So let's say that does no good. That's a call to the fire department. I don't want that one. So what I'm gonna do is instead I'm gonna move my cursor over, and you're gonna notice since I didn't click and place anything, it's not a problem. Now let's say for a moment I did click and place this, and I decide, oh nope, I don't like that. Now's a good time for us to talk about the delete option. So because I'm active in effects, that means I can manipulate, move, and delete objects that are relevant to the effects content. So what I'm going to do is just like if I was picking and moving or rotating, I'm going to pick this trash can, and that indicates delete. So check this out. Once I've got delete selected, and I know that because it's active, I'm going to move my cursor over to this thing that I want to delete, and you see the little red star. That indicates, okay, you want to delete this effect, and I'm indicating, yes, I do. So I'm going to left click it, and just like that, big scary fire is gone. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click into effects, and I'm going to grab something a little more reasonable. So this one looks a bit better. I'm going to tap left click. I'm going to drag that in, specify where exactly I want to put it in my model. Oh, wouldn't want that. Just over here. Left click. And great. Just like that, we've got a much more reasonable and safer looking fire. Now I'm all done putting that in, but maybe I want to add a little bit of something else. So I surf through my different effects and I see, hey, they have a smoke option. Great. Let's see what that's all about. Maybe we add a little bit of smoke here. So I'm going to left click this one now. I'll move my cursor over, pick right around here. So there's kind of some realism to it. And if I say, hey, smoke looks good, but it's not really blowing in the direction that I want it to. Well, just like with our trees or our people, we can rotate and move our effects around as much as we want to. So what we'll do is we'll move down to our content editing panel right here. I'm going to move over to rotate, left click. I'm going to move over to indicate what I want to rotate. Aha, so you're going to notice here, it's having a little trouble differentiating. If I zoom in here just a smidge, just to get a little bit closer to what we're looking at, you're going to notice if I move my cursor over this, it kind of highlights the smoke in green to indicate and almost ask us, is this the one you want to rotate? Or if I move my cursor over a little bit to the left, you're going to notice that the fire is more so illuminated as if it's asking, or is this one you want to rotate? So in this case, we want to rotate our smoke. So we will left click and hold. And you're going to notice that now, just like with anything else, I can just rotate it with the left click held as much as I want. So maybe the smoke is blowing towards the building a little bit more and away from this nice lady. And just like that, we can rotate. So that is a little bit about bringing in different content. And again, you can really have some fun with this. Bring a car in. For some reason, this person may be parked on the lawn, but the idea is, it gives you a sense of scaling, essentially just bringing that extra piece of realism and, I guess, visual understanding to what you're doing. And you're going to notice everything you put in here is going to come with reasonable scaling. So any entourage you pull in, whether it's people or cars or people on bikes or what have you, it's all going to be reasonably scaled. So it'll kind of take away that element of kind of using the scale factor in Illustrator to trick something else that it's at exactly a reasonable size. So there's that added benefit as well. So all of this is good, but obviously I know when we are in this course and for this project, you guys are working with stuff that, you designed. So that's where we're going to switch gears here for just a moment. This is something I made in Sketchup. It's a really simple model, but I know from assignment 2, you guys are all very competent and very skilled at putting materials on stuff, because I saw some really cool and really creative materials used on different things, which is awesome. That's really going to help you. So what I'm going to suggest is this. You're going to design your actual space, whether it's, your coffee shop or like the watchtower or whatever you have to do in assignment 3. You're going to design whatever buildings you need in your criteria. I mean, I personally recommend SketchUp, but you're free to use, whatever you wish. And I also really recommend putting your materials on your work in SketchUp. We're going to get a chance to fine tune them, the materials in Lumion, but having your base simple materials on, they can be super simple, super chunky. They don't have to be beautiful, but just having a material on your different surfaces you want to color is really going to help you out. And I'm going to show you what I mean right now. So we've played around with this example for a while. We're gonna switch to something else here. We're gonna move our cursor over here. We're going to, you see the floppy disk here? We're gonna pick this one because this is gonna take us to save and load projects. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move over to create new. And now it's time for us to start having fun with one of our own creations. We're gonna pick create new, and you're gonna see, okay, there's options. We can do it in a beach, or we can create something in a mountain range, whatever we want, a glade. Let's try the project for assignment 3 is going to be kind of suburban, so let's go ahead and try something kind of suburban as well. Let's pick the suburban environment project template. Might take a minute or so to load. Okay, fantastic, we're in. Great. So we see there's a few base pieces of information here already. Nothing wrong with that. If we want to get rid of these people here, we certainly can. But for now, let's focus on this great big piece of space that we got right here. Let's say, just hypothetically, that this is kind of like what the space that you're doing for assignment 3 is looking. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of bringing in, an imported piece of a piece of Entourage rather from Lumion that already exists, we will do that too. But for now, we want to import that nice model that we designed in SketchUp. So here's how we're going to do. We're going to go down on content library to imported models. We're going to tap left click. And here's where the magic over here, we're going to go ahead and get rid of that really quickly just so that's not a huge problem. And here's where the magic of Lumion is really going to come through, because what you can do here is we can import whatever model that we've crafted in SketchUp or in Rhino as an OBJ file or whatever we want. And we can import all of our work into Lumion and start creating a scene around it. So here's how we'll do it. We're in imported models. We're going to move up to import new model. I will left click. And let's say here's where I have my coffee shop that I designed in SketchUp. I'm going to left click and pick it. I'm going to move down to open, tap left click. And it's going to say, hey, is this what you want to import? Yes, this is exactly what we want to import. We're happy with it. Coffee shop, good, that's what it's called. We're going to go down and we're going to hit OK. It'll take a second here because it's chewing through a bunch of polygons and putting it in Lumion world. But, whoa, okay, great. So there it is. So it's just like placing any other object where you're going to notice you have the option to essentially pick a point that you want to place it. So I'm going to nudge this guy over. I mean, it doesn't really matter where we put him. We'll get to fine tune his place in a minute. So we'll tap left click. Oh, what's this? We haven't specified that we're done placing yet. So we're going to go ahead and hit escape to indicate we don't need 2 coffee shops. We just want to place one. So what we're going to do now is, now that we have our thing that we made in SketchUp or whatever modeling software you used, now we're going to fine tune it and put it in an actual spot on the site that we are happy with. So let's do that right now. We've got our imported models portion of the panel active. So that's great. Now we're going to move over. It's just like moving a tree or moving one of the other pieces of Entourage. We're going to move over to select. We're going to pick select. You're going to move your cursor over to here. And you're going to notice, okay, so when I click on this piece of content that we just imported in, the whole thing is highlighted. And we see here is kind of where it's got that base grab point like we were seeing all the other models and pieces of Entourage have. So let's go ahead and we're going to make sure move free is active. We're going to left click and drag. We're going to drag it over so that this nice path here is aligned with where there's an entryway. So yeah, that looks fine to me. Great. So let's zoom in a little bit and let's see what we're dealing with here. All right, fantastic. So our coffee shop is sitting on the site. That's all really great. we're happy with that. So awesome. We've imported all this content. That's good. But what are we noticing here? We see all these cool different materials and stuff in the background, and then these ones that we pulled in from SketchUp look kind of flat, like the windows instead of glass or are gray. That's no good. But luckily, that's not a problem. I was specifically saying like don't worry about putting really fancy materials in your SketchUp model because you're going to get to fine tune them a lot more in Lumion. Basically, and Michael brought up a really good point uh, during the break. The idea here is it is really worthwhile to put your materials on more or less where you want them in a sort of a refined sense in the SketchUp model. Because what that does is that tells Lumion, oh, okay, this is a material that's different from this material is different from this material. They're all different materials, which means you can edit them independently. You know, you're not just editing one solid default material so that everything is just kind of like one color. You specify to Lumion, these are different colors, and Lumion knows, oh, okay, I'll let you adjust them independently. Let's try it right now. Yep, exactly right. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So what we're going to do is now that we've done our import, that's all great. Now we're going to move our cursor over to materials. We're going to left click. And now check this out. Just like before, as I move my cursor over top, look, see? Just like Justin was saying, because these things were different colors and different materials, now Lumion knows, okay, that floor is different from this wall, which is different from this glass. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick one of these materials, and then you're going to find that just like before, just like we were doing when we were messing with the deck, we're going to be able to edit them. So let's go ahead and start by doing something about this translucent gray glass, because that's driving me crazy. Let's pick that, and we're going to make that a nice glass color. So I've got the translucent gray picked in the materials library. Now I'm going to surf around here until I find a really nice glass option. Let's see. So I go to indoor, and then I move my cursor down, and I see, okay, we got fabric, no, leather, no, metal, no, glass. Perfect. That's what we want. Let's see what our glass material options are. So I'll pick left click, and holy man, we got a whole bunch of different options here. Interior glass, milkier glass. You know, we can pick and we can experiment. You know, let's try interior volume glass. Ah, okay, great. So automatically much better, right? You see a little sheen in the window. You know, you can see what's going on inside much better. That's great. So maybe we want to edit it a little bit. Once we pick the material, we can just go up to edit material, the top left here, click into that. Now see here, we can adjust reflectivity. We can adjust internal reflections, you know, transparency. If we want to maybe make this glass a little bit more opaque, we certainly can. You know, there's lots of different options of what we can do. As you can see, there's already that the refraction right here. So that's awesome. That's exactly what we want. Let's make that a little more transparent though. So that's great. Let's say we're happy with this material. That's awesome. Now we're going to move our cursor down to see this giant check mark here. That's going to indicate save changes because we made this change to the material and we're happy with it. We want it to stick. So we're going to move down here. We're going to hit the giant check mark. Okay, great. That material is changed. Now let's do something about this crazy siding. So what we're going to do is we're going to move our cursor. We're not going to click translucent gray glass because we're happy with that. We're going to pick this material here. And don't worry about the names. There's no fancy naming conventions you need to worry about here. As long as Lumion recognizes that's a material that's separate from like the glass and the other stuff, that's all we need to worry about. So we will pick that. Now we're going to move over to our different material options and see what we have. We can look through outdoor. We see, okay, we've got wood, bricks, concrete. Okay, we don't want to mess with that too much. Let's try, okay, let's try something like indoor here. Maybe we can find kind of a cool slat or something. Again, experimentation is going to be what it's all about. Maybe we find kind of a cool fine wood. Well, that's kind of cool. And we essentially pick and choose as we want to. Let's say, yeah, great, we're happy with that. we'll move down to our check marks and say, awesome. And really what you're doing at this stage is you're just picking your different materials and you're essentially going to be able to trick them out and do cool stuff as much as you like. So we'll pick this one. And once again, let's see what, let's do something kind of funky and kind of different here. We can see there's different options for like aging material, indoor, outdoor. I want to do something kind of funky with tiles or maybe something kind of stony like that. Okay, that looks ridiculous. Forget that. But you get the idea. You can essentially adjust this and have fun with it, you know? It's a lot like applying a material in, in SketchUp. You're just painting it on, but now you have the option to edit it and adjust it. And now again, there'll be room to play and have some fun. So all this is good. We'll say, yeah, we're happy with this crazy looking tile here. We'll say, great, done. Ooh, but look at this. We see some leftover pieces of this model that were existing already. We don't want these crazy tufts of fern and that kind of thing in there. So what we're going to do is how are we going to get rid of that? We're going to see, hey, why can't we click on that right now? Well, that's because we don't currently have content selected. So if you're ever wondering, how come I can't get rid of this or how come I can't change that? My advice to you will be really keep an eye on what you've currently got selected in your material editor of build mode. So because that is an object, we need to make sure we are on that's a piece of content. We need to make sure we're in the content here. But then when you look at it, you're like, hey, how come I still can't click it? That's where you got to make sure that you're in the nature portion of the content now, because that will actually let you edit components related to nature. So let's say, yeah, I want to get rid of that one. We've got nature tab selected. Move over to delete. Pick delete. And now it's going to ask us what objects do you want to delete. So we'll make sure we pick this one. This one. We'll get rid of this too. And anything that's essentially in the nature category of content, we'll essentially be able to delete or adjust or do whatever we want with based on what we're hoping to accomplish. So great, we've cleaned that up a little bit. The rocks are kind of nice. We can leave those where they are. All that's good. So awesome. But I think this coffee shop needs some people. So what are we going to do? We're going to now move over to our people and animals portion of the content library. I would personally recommend when you're in SketchUp, making sure the roofing glass and the window glass are two different glasses, because then you'll be able to apply two different materials to them. So, I mean, it's just it'll be a little tiny bit of extra work in SketchUp just to make sure they're different materials, and then they'll sort of be ungrouped for you. I would recommend doing as much of that work in SketchUp kind of on the back end as you can, because then you're going to find you're just adjusting and fine tuning and that's really what Lumion's all about. Lumion isn't really a building tool. It's a dressing tool. So I recommend doing a lot of that building and differentiating, I guess, on the back. So now seems like a good time for us to start pulling in a little bit of Entourage here. So what we're going to do is, once again, if we want to say bring some people in, we're going to move our cursor over to people and animals. We will left click, and we're going to have some options to kind of surf through here and see what we want. So if we want to bring, a guy walking or something like that in, we're going to be able to. Now you're going to notice something here. You're going to see, oh, there's an animation cycle. Don't worry, that's not going to do something weird with your drawing or anything like that, or that won't do anything weird with your rendering when you send it out. It's just a little bit of extra realism so that, like, when it captures that snap, that guy's going to have a little bit of an extra realistic nature. He's going to have like a realistic gait to his walk. So that's all good. Let's bring somebody else in too. We'll bring in, maybe we'll bring in somebody with a carriage or something like that. We'll zoom out a little bit. We'll kind of have the options to really set the stage here. And again, this will just involve playing around, having some fun, seeing what really works for you. But want to change the directions people are walking so that they look a little bit more realistic. What am I going to do? With people and animals active, I'm going to move my cursor over to rotate. I will pick rotate, and it's going to ask me to specify what do I want to rotate. Well, I want to rotate this guy. So I'm going to move my cursor up over to where he is to kind of like this grab point at the base of the model. I will tap left click and hold, and I'm going to drag. So we'll say he's walking inside. And if I want to adjust this lady over here, I'm going to move my cursor. I will left click and hold, and I will drag so that it looks like she's kind of angling towards the steps. So that's all really good. Now, if I want to do stuff like add something different, say some objects, I'm going to click over to the objects portion of the tab. So I'll double click that. And you're going to see that's where I have tons of options for seating and for tables. So this is a coffee shop. Let's add some coffee tables. Perfect. Yeah, look through. There's all kinds of different tables. I will pick a cafe table. Great. We see here, just like before, there's a 3 with kind of a stack here. That means there's some options. So let's see what options they've given us. Tap left click. Great. A few different cafe tables. That's awesome. I kind of like this one. Let's pick this. So then we will rotate, and maybe we'll go inside a little bit and fly inward. And again, all I'm doing there is I'm just using the arrow keys, WASD, to navigate around. And we'll put a couple tables in. Then if we are all done adding tables, we can hit escape, move over to seating. We can add some chairs. These chairs are like really blowing my mind here. I don't want to add an office chair. Oh, well, whatever. Maybe this is a really designy cafe. We'll add some cool cafe chairs. And I want to rotate those so that they're actually facing inward. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to, with objects active, I'm going to pick rotate. I'm going to click and hold left click, and I'm going to just rotate them inward. And do the same thing over here. Left click and hold and rotate inward. So that's all good. You know, just like that. I'm able to essentially bring in pieces of Entourage and rotate them as I want to. I want to put a person sitting in that chair though, which luckily I can do pretty easily. I'm going to go back to my people and animals option, pick left click. See if we can find a good example of a person sitting or something like that. We'll put this person in here. Guy seated, perfect. We'll pick him. Okay, we don't want him kind of floating in the middle of space here. We'll put him right around there. This guy's huge compared to this chair. Okay, obviously, he would never look like that. We're gonna fix him right up. Let's go ahead and rotate him. Pick the rotate option in people and animals active. Left click, drag, and rotate. I mean, he still looks huge, but he's at least facing the right direction. So you get the idea. He doesn't have his leg through the back of the chair. You get the sense that as you bring Entourage in, you're going to be able to manipulate and move stuff kind of as you need to. So add Entourage and trick it out and add, you know, coffee cups and all that kind of stuff to the back tables here as much as you like. This is where you can kind of be an artist and use all the different paint palettes and that sort of thing to really have some fun. But I think it's a good time for us to chat about actually setting up some views of our own. So how will we do that? Well, first, we're going to get out of build mode. We're going to move our cursor over to photo, and we're going to see what we can do there. So we'll pick photo. Now we're in the photo section of our work. Holy man. Okay, so that's all great, but that is an awful lot of already added stuff. We want to make sure we're adding a completely fresh one. So we're starting from absolutely the base. So we'll say we're in here. We'll go to custom styles so that we're saying, okay, completely fresh, no things added onto it, no special effects. We're going to build all those in ourselves. So just like before, we're going to move up to the top here. We'll tap left click. And this is going to really depend on what you want to accomplish. Again, I always really like starting with realistic because I find that you can then manipulate materials pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick realistic. And we're going to start adjusting our lighting accordingly. So already, you know, that's not half bad. That's showing, it's a little dark, but it is showing some differences in material. You see some content and that kind of thing in the background. You see that nice kind of glaze of the glass. That's all pretty good, but we want to make sure this building is in the light. So, so anyway, I think this is where you can kind of have some fun here. As you can see, picking realistic brought in a whole swack of different effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adjusting these now that they're in our model. Let's pick real skies. We're going to change that up a little bit. So we're going to select a different real sky. We're going to we're just going to single click. And maybe we don't want cloudy. Maybe we want this to be a nice clear day. So we'll pick, doesn't really matter. We'll get to experiment a little bit with options. Let's try this one. Tap left click. So that's all good. But again, we want this all to be in the light. We want this to be like well illuminated. So we're going to grab our heading, left click and hold. And you're going to notice we can rotate it as much as we want to. And we can see just like that, our work is already a little bit better lit. Some of it is going to be in the dark no matter what, but whoa, just like that, suddenly much brighter, way better lighting. The view is just a little bit more exciting just like that. Maybe we can tone down the brightness a little bit, so there'll certainly be some room to play. But you know, now that at least we have the style in there, it's easy to adjust it as we kind of want to. And as I was saying before, it's definitely once you've got a view that you're happy with, you're going to move your cursor up to Store in Camera. You're going to tap left click. And now that's going to save our work for us so that if we move away or we start working on another view, we haven't lost all this progress that we've made. So maybe now is a good time for us to also change the title, and we'll call this Perspective View from. Always good to give it a title that is, is fairly descriptive. So that's great. I've got that saved. Now, if I want to start a completely fresh view, what am I going to do? I'm going to click into one of these empty slots here, because I've got a whole bunch of empty slots. I will double click, and you're going to see all my styles went away. That's completely fine, because they're already saved over here. So once I'm in this view, I can move around, just like I'm navigating in build mode. Right click, look around, looks good. I can shuffle over and I can move around as I need to. Now let's say this time I want like a bird's eye view because I want to see like the top of the structure and the surrounding area. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use Q, hold it down, and up we go. And just like that, I've now got this cool kind of bird's eye view of the structure. And I can start once again, I can pull in a bunch of cool styles from realistic or from the style option, and I can kind of start having some fun that way. So we'll pick custom style, and who knows, maybe this time we want to show something a little bit different. Maybe we want to show like a cool I don't know, like a cool watercolor. Maybe this is like a high concept kind of client meeting sort of thing. Let's try a color sketch. Let's see what that's all about. So check that out. So what that's done is the folks at Lumion, who essentially designed this package of different effects and that sort of thing, have already done all the heavy lifting in terms of like tricking out the different effects that we could have otherwise found in the add effect portion to essentially get it like this. So luckily, we don't have to worry about doing any of that work if we don't want to. We can just go ahead and we can save this if we want. We'll go ahead and start, and we'll title it something catchy like birds one. Great, sounds fun. And if we want to, we can also adjust all of these different graphic settings and that sort of thing as much as we want to. So we'll click over to, oh, and you're going to notice too, because that just plucked in a lot of different effects, not all of them fit on essentially one page or one screen. So if I click over from page 1 to page 2, I can find all the extra effects and that sort of thing that were previously didn't fit on the first page. So you're going to see that right here, this is where you're going to be able to adjust things like the different, outlines and that sort of stuff that make this perspective and view so unique. So if I adjust things like color variation, I can trick that out as much as I want to. Transparency, outline density, if I want to make it nice and thick and really show some cool line hierarchy and make it look real sketchy, I can. If I want to adjust things like outline overdraw, I can edit all that stuff, to really give it that hand-drawn, on-the-fly, artistic rendering kind of look. So here's where, again, using stuff like the style select is really just going to help you get to that stage of having a really great looking finished product just that much faster, you know? Lumion is kind of built to want to help you, and this will sort of be your tool on your path to having a good looking render that much quicker. So let's say here, we'll go ahead and we'll save that because we want to make sure maybe we keep our presets and we'll say we're happy with those. Once again, if we want to render one of these, what we're going to do is, let's say I want to render this first one that I worked on. We'll tap left click. We'll say, yep, we're happy with that. We like how it looks. We like all the effects that are on it. This is exactly what we want to show. We're going to move our green button over to our green button here and pick render. Tap left click. And just like that, it's going to give us a whole bunch of different options. And I know I picked desktop before, but just for the sake of kind of showing how much we can really make that realism and that sort of thing pop in really, really high definition, let's pick a little bit of a nicer output here. So we're going to pick render print. Let's tap this one. And we'll call this perspective rendering 2. Again, I know it's good to save things with dates and that kind of thing. I know we told you that at the start of the class. I'm sorry for not doing it that much myself, but I promise it'll make your work on due days much easier. Go ahead and hit save. And Lumion will take a minute to navigate these millions of polylines and polygons and stuff to produce a pretty decent final rendering. See how nice the glass and everything looks? So anyway, is this generally speaking making sense for people? Like, is people are sort of understand? Okay, no one's like horribly lost with this, are they? Yeah. Okay. Well, just like before, what I'll do is